Welcome back, Yoni here. I have a few clips that I think are interconnected. The first one is on a YouTube channel and a discussion with an ex-Hasidic that talks about his upbringing and how he left. And I don't really want to get into all that, but I do want to comment, and I think it's useful for our conversation on our channel about Chabad's sort of different approach to Judaism and God. So here we go.
Before I started, I want to say that the ultra-Orthodox community can be split in three main sections. And Javi Weisberger was talking about two of them. But I want to stress out three main sections that Javi didn't mention. So one is the Hasidic. Most of them are not speaking the language of the country, especially the boys, but they are speaking Yiddish, for example, in New York, in America, and other places. The second section would be the Yeshivish or Litvish. They do most of the time speak the language of the country, like English or Hebrew in Israel. Then there is a third section that's called Chabad Lubavitch. This is a very important to emphasize because there is a big confusion that is done intentionally all the time by Chabad to confuse people. So Chabad Lubavitch is a modern movement. Although they would tell you that the movement is old 200 years, but the truth of the matter is that the contemporary Chabad Lubavitch movement is not older than 40, 50 years. A modern movement of outreach. So they go around, the Chabad students, the Chabad boys, are going around to find secular Jews, do a mitzvah, put on tefillin on the arm, on the head, and to bring them closer to religion. And that's why Chabad Lubavitch goes in an opposite direction of the regular ultra-Orthodox. The ultra-Orthodox direction is insulation, separation from the world, not to have any contact with the world. Chabad has an opposite direction to go out in the world and reach out and bring in more and more people from the outside. That's why Chabad Lubavitch is a totally different culture and system, different planet than the ultra-Orthodox. Many times, Chabad is considered ultra-Orthodox. Some Chabad PR are using this in order to confuse people about ultra-Orthodox in general. They talk from Chabad experience, and they claim that this is the experience of all ultra-Orthodox, as if all sections of ultra-Orthodox are the same like Chabad Lubavitch. That's deceit, an intentional confusion. They want to be considered the PR not just for Chabad, Lubavitch, but also for all Hasidic communities, and because Chabad are considered Hasidim. So when I talk about Hasidic communities, I'm not talking about Chabad Lubavitch. Their first tongue is English, the language of the country, not Yiddish. I am talking about Hasidic, Yiddish-speaking communities.
Yeah, and
So, not to go into the PR part, but this idea that Chabad is, as he says, from a different planet. While all the other Hasidic communities, they stay insular and isolated and sort of create their own Hasidic ghetto and don't really engage with the world. Chabad's philosophy is the exact opposite, like he says. We engage with the world. The question is, why is that? I think some philosopher once said, if you ask the question why 5 times, you could come to the underlying root or the fundamental principle of a philosophy. So it's nice that everyone knows that the Chabad philosophy is we engage with the world and we use technology. And obviously that was the Rebbe's signature of embracing, whether it was cable TV or going out to the streets of Manhattan, 13, 14-year-old boys going to Times Square asking Jewish men to put on film, which would be unthinkable, not fathomable for other Hasidic groups. And the Rebbe took a polar opposite approach, especially when the movement began in the 40s, 50s, which would make, even if you want to say the contemporary modern Lubavitch, heavy emphasis on outreach, going back more than 40, 50 years. But the question is why? Why is Chabad so different? Why do we engage with the world? Why do we say it's not enough just to sit in our own community and do our thing? And of course, if you want to get to the heart of it, if we wanted to do our thing, which would be just to have our community and our synagogue and the mikvah and our yeshivas, that would be nice and would create this sort of heaven on earth for us. but how would that unite a world? How would that affect a whole entire world? So the Rebbe said, I'm glad that's what you think you would need, but he encourages followers at a very heavy cost. People didn't want to go and leave Crown Heights. And the Rebbe said, there's a whole world to change. Engage with the world. Why? Because it's not about what you need. We're not talking about what you need. We're talking about what God needs. So if you could put yourself aside, become a shliach, an emissary. And as it says in countless places in halacha, that shluchoi shel adam kamoisei, that a messenger of somebody to do a mitzvah is like the person himself who sent the messenger. So of course, if we're a shliach of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe is merely a shliach of God himself. So God says, I need you to go find those Jews and also influence non-Jews wherever they may be in the world. They also have mitzvahs, the 7 Noahide laws. And this is nothing really new, because if you go back to the books of the prophets, the famous line is, the Jews should be a light unto the nations. Just don't be this little holy nation that people may be able to get a glimpse and interact with you on a, here by their basis, but rather there's a whole world to influence. And the Rebbe got this perspective and obviously taught it. And it goes back to when Chabad did start a few hundred years ago in the Tanya, that God desired a dwelling place in this lowest world. And if you're going to interact with the lowest world, you can't say, I'm good. It's all about me. It's for my benefit. And I'm doing my thing. I'm doing what I need, which is sort of the conventional without Hasidic philosophy is the way that you look at it. Let's go to clip number 2.
Hashem takes nothing from us. He only gives. There's nothing for him to take from us. The mitzvot are for us. It's us serving Hashem, us perfecting ourselves, us purifying ourselves. The Torah is in order to know who Hashem is, what Hashem is, how to do his mitzvot. That's for us again. Everything is for us. Our servitude of Hashem is for our benefit, not his. Only the heretics think that you serve Hashem because he needs you to serve him.
Although he just said the servitude or service of him, if we're doing it for our benefit, how is that serving God? How is that Ivdu es Hashem? Go to almost any shul in the world and they'll have on top of their Aron Kodesh a line that would say, Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. Serve God happily. If the mitzvahs are only for your benefit, then how is that serving God? Please, if there's somebody out there who doesn't accept this approach or the Chabad approach and doesn't go out on Friday and try to put on tefillin on people in Times Square or give out Shabbos candles to Jewish women and girls, how do you answer that question? What does it mean to serve God? How are you serving him if it's only for your benefit? And on top of it, like he just said, God's mitzvahs are for us, but they're his mitzvahs. They're his mitzvahs, and then he gives them to us. Meaning, before he gives them to us, a mitzvah is something special, and I imagine very necessary and important to him, and he's taking what's most important and giving it to us. Like one of the biggest objections I always hear, it says, Lo nitnu ha-mitzvahs zelo litzaref bahen hasabrius. The mitzvahs were only given to refine you. Like we said in the past, like it's yoga or a good self-help program. You need a little refinement here. Here's 613 ways. I mean, that's got to be the biggest joke. God says, I don't really care. It's for you. It's not for me. It's not necessary to me. It doesn't affect me, but it's for you. Because of how important it is to God, and he's sharing his deepest desires with us. Therefore, when he gives it to us and we respond, it's the ultimate refinement, because refinement means it's not about me. For God's sake, it's not about me. And and I understand that it hasn't been articulated in such a direct way, perhaps, even in history. So if somebody out there wants to throw in the comment, what does it mean to serve God as you view it? And here is the Chabad approach. Obviously, Rabbi Manas Friedman, who's been teaching Chabad Chassidus for decades. You go on Chabad.org, who teaches the Daily Tanya. I think the first name that comes up is Rabbi Manas Friedman, or his brother-in-law, Rabbi Josh Gordon, Olav Shalom. You go on to Jewish Learning Institute, another beautiful Chabad institution, on the YouTube channel, countless classes from Rabbi Manas Friedman. So well known. And let's hear what he has to say. And obviously we've heard it before, but I think this clip from YouTube, which has 409,000 views. That means people are watching, describing the Chabad approach, which is really the Jewish approach. Perhaps it was infected, but this is really be the Jewish approach. Let's hear what Rabbi
Here's
Friedman
what
has to say.
Jewish thinking should be. We are not needy and dependent on God. God is the one who is needy, and he is dependent on us. That's faith. Emunah means a familiarity. Like in the Hebrew, the word uman means a craftsman, an expert, somebody who's familiar with. We are familiar with God because God needs us more than we need him. And that's why commandments, 10 commandments, that translation has ruined everything. As soon as you say God has commandments, he's no longer friendly. He's not the one who's needy. Now you got to watch your step because you violated a commandment. That's not Jewish thinking. Jewish thinking is when God spoke to us at Mount Sinai, he wasn't telling us what we must do, he's telling us what he must have. The kind of world he needs and the kind of world he envisioned when he created it.
So how beautiful was that? How is that not inspiring? I mean, the first time I heard that, I was like, it all makes sense. God comes down to a mountain in a desert. He wasn't giving us a self-help program. And he wasn't saying it doesn't affect me. He wasn't telling us what we must do. He was rather telling us what he must have. The mitzvahs and the Jewish people performing mitzvahs and the non-Jewish people performing their mitzvahs, that will fulfill the whole purpose and point of creation, which he intended right at the start. So Hasidic ghettos and threatening everybody with going to Gehenna, hell, purgatory, or if they do it, they'll get salvation. This is all way besides the point. Perhaps this is where man has sort of polluted everything. So religion has come to mean follow these rules and regulations and you'll get a reward in the world to come. Judaism means, God, I'm here. You need the world to be in a certain state, holy or spiritual, together, united, all human beings. I'm ready and able, like a Navy SEAL or soldier who goes out to whatever the country needs, whatever the general needs. I'm here. I'm here to fulfill the purpose as the best as to my abilities. And that was the Chabad Lubavitch approach since it began a few hundred years ago, and more than ever as we get closer to the times of Mashiach. Don't create Hasidic ghettos. Don't be afraid of the world. It's the exact opposite. We're here to serve. We're here to be a light unto the nations. So it's funny. It's almost like we're here to serve the rest of the world and say, this is what life is all about. This is the purpose of creation. So anyone who wants to comment and tell me how they look at it from a different perspective, I'm always interested to hear. You can email me, RabbiYoniKatz@gmail.com. Again, these videos are not meant to be personal or attacking. This is an idea that's being articulated in a whole new, profound way, and it can be shocking. And I understand the resistance. So let's hash it out together. Let's flesh it out together. That's why I'm doing these YouTube videos. Send sources, send comments, and I hope to hear from you very soon. Everybody have a blessed day. And remember, God's depending on you. Your fellow human beings are dependent upon you. And let's change the world together.